Welcome to another episode of Specify Talks, the show where we dig into the stories, the skills, and the secrets behind the people building our world, where construction meets conversation. I'm your co-host Jonathan Payne, and I'm joined by my other host,
Jared Graham. Good to be here. I'm looking forward to today's guest.
And on each podcast, we'll bring you interviews with construction people right across the spectrum. And today, very interesting one, is Gary Cowan, who is the head of digital construction for Kane. And today we'll be looking at what digital construction actually is. So looking forward to this one, Jared. What about you?
I'm looking forward to two things. Digital construction is huge, Jonathan, but I'm really interested in the company that he works for, Kane Group and Banbridge. I think it's a really interesting story. They're a growth story, and I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
Let's roll on and meet Gary. Okay, our guest today is Gary Cowan. Gary, great to see you. Gary is the head of digital construction for the Kane Group. So Gary, maybe we'll start. Do you want to give us a sort of a 60-second overview of yourself, what your job is, your job title, and what your actual role is?
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, guys. It's really lovely to be here today. My name's Gary Cowan, and I am head of digital construction for Kane Group. Kane Group are an Irish-based design and build M&E contractor based out of Banbridge here in Northern Ireland, and I've been with them for just over 12 years now, almost 13 years. I started life there as a standard CAD's draftsman, basically BIM technician, and over the last 12 years I've basically built up the digital construction side of the business to be, really, really good and industry leading and recognised all over the world for what we can do. And it's really sort of helped the company as a whole grow and let us sort of do much more complex projects.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about your career and how you actually got into construction. How did you start? What inspired you, and what was the stepping stones to get you from where you were to where you are today?
I grew up in a house full of men, two older brothers, Thomas and Alan, who are quite a bit older than me, 16 years older and 12 years older. So when I appeared, I appeared in the house full of tradesmen. My oldest brother Alan, he was a joiner by trade. My next brother Thomas, he's a sheet metal worker in short. So I grew up in an environment where if anything broke or anything needed fixed, it was very much hands-on. We never brought a plumber in, or we never brought a spark in. If something broke, we were expected to go and be able to break the breaker and take it apart and figure out what happened. So growing up, I always had a natural curiosity about all the things. You either like paper or things, and I always gravitated to things. I always wanted to see how things worked. So every birthday or Christmas that I got gifts, I was straight out to my dad's shed, taking them apart with a screwdriver, wanting to know the internal workings of them. More fascinated about the internal functioning of this thing rather than how it actually played. So growing up, I always had that curiosity, and as I grew into a sort of teenager, I started working for my older brother Alan. He ran his own joinery company at that stage, and I started doing sort of casual work for him at the sort of summer times and evenings and weekends. So started to get a taste for construction and enjoying working on the construction sites and working on people's homes or working in shop fitting different things. So I then decided to go to Queen's. I was doing good in my school. I went to Grosvenor Grammar School in East Belfast, and then I graduated up into Queen's. And there was no BIM, obviously, back in those days. I graduated in 2006, so my degree was a straight mechanical and manufacturing engineering degree.
Why mechanical? What took you down the mechanical engineering side if you were a joiner?
I was always thinking more about objects and things rather than circuitry and electrical. Obviously.
So you're a joiner, but you were disassembling the electric screwdriver. That's what you're saying.
I was always more interested in like cars and things that moved and objects rather than circuitry and electrical. I did enjoy that obviously because I did a lot of tinkering in computers and circuitry and soldering and stuff. So kind of just fell into it. I think in third year in school you had back in those days, it's like a multi-choice questionnaire that you had to fill in and ask you just generally about your life and what you liked, and when you fed that into the computer it came back with like 3 job titles, and mine was either architect, engineer or construction worker, and the architect degree was 7 years, so I went, forget about that, and then I found my sweet spot. I was like, I don't want to go on sites and maybe cold and wet and didn't fancy that, so I hit the sweet spot for the engineer, and I started looking at it and thinking, I always had a dream of being a consultant. That was my early career aspirations, was to be a design consultant, for example, and drive a big Jaguar and have that sort of life. Brilliant. So went to university, did 4 years at Queen's, and my sandwich year was actually working in the Department of Health and Social Services, Public Safety, Northern Ireland, but up behind the Ulster Hospital, Stony Road, if you knew that. So I worked for, that was my first taste of building services. And I worked for a gentleman called Brian Diamond. He was brilliant. He was an older gentleman, and he really took me under his wing at the time and taught me all the old school rule of thumb design. And even back then, it was still 2D AutoCAD. You know, that was back in 2004, I think. So there was no sign of BIM at all. It was all still 2D AutoCAD, but it really gave me a taste of built-in services design, and I was thinking, like, I really enjoy this. You know, it was the puzzle of it. And back then, with the tools that we had, you really had to think about coordination, because you couldn't just flick a 3D view in Revit, or you couldn't just cut a section. If you wanted to indicate a section, you had to almost understand it and draw it from your own mind's eye. So I did that for a few years, and then sort of as I progressed through different companies here in Northern Ireland, I started off in Red Sky doing sort of BIM work for them, or CAD work as it was at the time, excuse me. But then I had the opportunity really early in my career to actually go out on the sites and actually go and learn how it actually gets built. And because it was pure theory up until a point with my engineering, and I had quite a bit of experience joinery wise, I thought, right, let's go out and spend a bit of time on the sites. So I jumped into a junior contracts manager role at that stage, and basically spent a lot of time actually running jobs on site and actually learning the whole contract side of it, how a contract works, you know, programming, health and safety, method statements, safe working, all that kind of stuff. So I spent quite a number of years on the sites in that sort of dual role between contracts manager, project manager, site engineer. I kind of danced between a few different
Was
companies.
that still on the mechanical side as
Always
such?
mechanical, yes, and always working with electrical. Obviously, they're like hand and glove M&E, but you know, sort of varying different types of jobs: shop fitting, hospitals, schools, different things. And then I started learning about this Revit BIM in the background, and I was able to get a hold of a license through one of the jobs I was working at the time, and started sort of learning it in the background, and didn't really have much application for it in my job. I actually just went home and I drew my own house. I drew my mum and dad's house. I drew my brother's house. I went and fished out some CAD files from jobs I had done years and years previously, and I started modelling all of the steel structures, and just to get my way around Revit and understanding it. And as I was learning it, it was the sort of same time it was developing in its infancy in the construction industry, and all of a sudden job titles started popping up for BIM technician, which had never been. So it was around about 2012 that I had seen the advertisement for a BIM technician at Kane's, and I was actually in between jobs at the time, so I applied at the time, and that was that was straight on at Kane's, and it was literally my first day in the job. It was, here's a brand new computer just out of the box, we've not even set it up yet, and we've bought this Revit software on a USB pen, off you go sort of thing. So there was no barriers.
So really, whenever you joined Kane's, BIM, Revit was totally new to them. They were
really
like,
was,
I was
yes.
seeing Kane's many years back as your traditional plumbing contractor.
Yes,
Really,
they
that's
very
very
much
much who they were in those
Oh
days.
yes, big time.
Yeah.
They were very good at CAD. My colleague Craig Dorn had been there a number of years already, and he was a CAD manager, and he was purely CAD based, and they were working very well in normal traditional workflows in 2D CAD. But as you say, it was so early in the projects, and in all projects, that it was just a deliverable. They had to deliver to the
It was
client.
just a contract requirement, so they had no
That was-
choice.
I was a tick box exercise, really, when you think about it. I was no more than ticking a box on a sheet that, yes, we've provided you a 3D model. We didn't use the model for the actual installations. It was still done through a 2D CAD workflow, so we drew everything in 3D,
You were drawing it, then go back to tradition.
punched out a
Yep.
2D flat CAD and handed it to somebody else for them to do the title block and dicky it up. And then if ever there was a change needed, the CAD got changed, but then the model didn't, and then it just slowly went completely south. And
Somebody got the scale ruler and the highlighter.
you know, the early days of BIM were painful. They really were.
See that term BIM? It's only around 2011 I really remember that starting to kick about as such. That's about right, Gary. 2011.
It would have been common phrase you'd have heard on a building site, maybe about 2011. I certainly heard it a lot earlier than that, maybe about 07, 08, just through being a technologist, you know, reading about things online and seeing things come
It's
up.
still a phrase, Jared, that scares a lot of people, isn't it, in the industry? They hear it and they go, you know, you can nearly see the shock on their face.
I understand that. The term BIM is actually moving on. It's
It is.
it's progressed past that now, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't really use that phrase myself now. I prefer to use VDC, which is virtual design and construction. You know, there's not many people who actually see BIM models right through from conception to completion. I call that full cycle BIM. You know, for me sitting in an evening watching the TV, maybe one of the wife's programs, and I'm half watching it, half eye on it, and I'm thinking about work, and I'm dreaming about how am I going to coordinate that thing. I actually see that right through to the very end, and I can stand on site and see that installed and finished. There's not many people in the industry get to do that, so
Yeah, of
I am
course.
very blessed in that sense that I get to do that. BIM people focus on the BIM model, and that's their whole world, and all they're thinking about is producing a digital model. They don't really think about the after, what comes next, when that's the actual using of that
Actual
model
delivery.
and all of the surrounding technologies to be able to build that building at pace quickly with zero waste. That's the goal. People lose sight of the end goal. The end goal is BIM is a tool for the building to be built quickly and efficiently.
But why is that? Is there a lack of skills? Is there a lack of understanding?
It's the fragmentation of it as well. A lot of companies that do build the buildings don't take BIM on seriously, like Kane have. They ship it out. They get an outsourcer to do it. They get another company to do it, and the other company are only focused on delivering a BIM model. They're not thinking about constructability, commissionability, replaceability. They're not thinking on down the road. Whereas with us being specialists and also doing FM ourselves, we think of the complete picture from conception to destruction ultimately in 25, 30 years' time.
So whatever you're 3D modelling, you're thinking about how you actually fit it, how you access it, how you service it, how you replace components during its life cycle.
That's always been my ethos. Because I did component design in Queen's, basically I learned how to do 3D modelling to very, very tight tolerances, like 1/16 of an inch tolerance. You're modelling gearboxes and moving components that have very, very tight tolerances.
1/16 of an inch, you showing your age a wee bit here.
I did, sorry. Anybody who's metric, that's showing me age there. So
for younger listeners, that's about a millimetre.
Around about a millimetre, yeah. So whenever I left university and really got into engineering professionally on sites, I was mystified at the fact that it was up to 50, 100 mil was allowed. It was just like the finger eye, but it'll end up over there somewhere. And I was like, how can this work? And it was then, around about that time, that prefab, as we would call it here, but our international audience would call it DFMA, Design for Manufacture and Assembly. That was also curating in its infancy at around about that time as well. And we were certainly doing a lot of prefab at the time, but not to the scale that we do it now. So, that's really how a lot of those technologies have just sort of came along. It's kind of stumbled through, and how we've learned on the roll, almost as we've adopted this technology and understood it at the very outset. It was purely to produce drawings, and that was it.
So in his initial stage, Kane very much was tick box, which is understandable.
Yeah.
How quickly did it take for them to actually realise massive potential here? We can actually revolutionise what we're doing by using this technology.
Certainly, it took a few years, I would say. We started to notice the increase in the volume of drawings we were able to produce, and then that was really the quality of the drawings started to increase much more, and we were able to actually start looking at areas. The old adage of, sure, we'll just leave it to the site guys, they'll knock it out and then we'll just go and sketch, that always was the way. The drawings were only ever an indication, a rough, this is what it should look like, and then the always expectation in those days was that the site team will sort it all out and then we'll just record what happened. But MMC in this modern method of construction doesn't function in that way. It's completely the other way around. We're expected to have that digital model sitting perfect, so that when everything comes to the ground, it's literally just like putting Lego together in a set sequence.
So really you're problem solving before the stuff hits site.
Exactly.
You're finding the problems,
Really,
finding the solutions.
Anyone who asks me what I do
process.
is, I always say that we build the building twice. We build it digitally first, and we get everything wrong, and we dress rehearse it as such, and then when it's time to go and hit the site, we're ready, and we come with all our drawings ready to go, planned out, sequenced out, and certainly now with all the technology surrounding it, it's a much...
Do you see the way you're saying you build it wrong in the model, build it right the next time? What happens when you go on site and the bricklayer's 20 mil out or the steel man's 15 mil out and you've done these great models?
It happens.
Your systems don't fit.
It
How
still
do you work around
happens.
that?
In the olden days, it used to be quite an arduous task to try and argue that out. How could you ever prove that this guy was wrong? But with the adoption of certain technologies that we've brought along during the way, like for example our point cloud scanning technology, there's not too many MEP contractors are going to take on that role or even that technology. It's quite a big investment, but we've seen real benefit from it. We go into an area now and scan the concrete structure, for example, and that gives us a baseline of the skeleton of the building. So we know exactly where all the beams are. So if there's anything that's been left out on a consultant's model or anything like that, which has also happened, quite often a consultant will design a steel frame, for example, and then it'll be passed to a steel frame contractor who changes the design but doesn't produce a secondary model. And then what's built on site doesn't reflect the actual design model that we've had.
Can you adjust your
Well,
model
we
at that
have
stage,
to
your
do that on the
coordination?
fly. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in the olden days, I remember one particular example, there was a beam run through a kitchen and we had brought a big duct through that was kitchen extract and we had to go under it and back up again. And we had all that ductwork prefabricated, and then back in those days I used to be on site quite a lot, so I went to the room that day and walked in, and the first thing I said was, where's the beam? There's no beam in the room. They had changed the design and managed to move the beam up into the floor slab and put the floor slab into the beam and eradicated the beam. But every model and drawing that I had in my hand indicated that beam was still there. And there was our duct going up and down for no reason. And we had then to go back and change it, and we had to bear the cost then. So again, that was a breakdown in BIM, that was a breakdown in design, where they didn't realise that the guy putting the steel frame together was going to make changes, and if he did make changes, sure, what happened to the rest of us that were working on BIM? So again, that was many years ago, that was probably 10 years ago, and things like that are slowly disappearing as it's adopted.
That probably highlights the issues that we have, because with this new fantastic groundbreaking technology, and then we've got the old school people on site who are doing it the old ways, and I think construction very much is still a very much labour intensive industry. A lot of problems are solved on site. What's the solution to actually streamline one process into the other?
It's a very leading question. It's a hard question to answer. You know, it's all about the people. As you say, the technology is moving so quickly. It's very hard for even people of my generation to keep up. You know, never mind someone who maybe is 10 years older than me and is going towards retirement.
How are you keeping up to breast with all that if it keeps moving so quickly?
It's hard. It's literally having to keep your finger on the pulse. As part of my role in Kane's as head of digital construction, that was kind of why that role was formed for me, to kind of almost remove me from the daily activities of the jobs, of the design. Now, I still do get involved in quite a lot of the jobs. I'm working on this new Epic job at the moment, and we're doing a lot of working, but the goal was to try and keep me out of the jobs and keep me watching
over the jobs rather than in them.
Aye, over them, making sure there's a minimum level of quality, that the processes that I have made or been in place. I have a brilliant team who work for me now, and it's been very hard to let go, obviously, because I'm the chief architect of the whole thing from conception. As it's grew to this huge machine, it's actually very, very hard for me to let aspects of it go. And I am starting to try and relax. I've built a good team now, solid team over the last decade, so a lot of the stuff I'm trying to now release out to people, but keeping your finger to the pulse is the key thing. I'm a technologist. I just love technology, so I'm always looking for the next big, great technology leap in everything, be it computing, IT, AI, whatever it is. So that helps.
It's really interesting because a lot of the youth today ignore construction because they want to be involved in the IT industry. And I think as a profession, we're trying to compete with that. We're trying to encourage younger people to come in. So what you're saying is the industry is going through very much a technology revolution here.
It is.
So how do we get that message out to the youth? How do we say to them, listen, you want to be in the IT industry, this is where it's happening.
Yeah.
Because we're not just sitting looking at screens, we're actually designing, developing and building from conception to completion, as you say, right through to the end of the lifespan.
I think it's just schools and the education industry have to sort of catch up. And I think if the industry itself is trailing behind, how can you expect the education board and the universities and all to be up the front with us? I speak to a lot of the universities here in the UK and here at home, Georgetown and Ulster University, and Queen's, and I sort of say that to them, and they are 15 years behind the industry. They're still teaching AutoCAD, they're still teaching, like for example, whenever I did the Rapid Industry Feedback Forum maybe 2 or 3 years ago with David Bukomsky, it was a real mix. Some kids were still using AutoCAD, some kids were using Revit, and then when you looked at the actual M&E design and the designs, some of them were ridiculously stupid, and the architects weren't catching. They were designing a hotel in Dublin, for example, and it was a 150 room hotel, and the ground floor plan, I looked at it with one of the young fellas, and he had a linen room that was something like 40 square metres, and his plant room was 4. And I said, well, how many bedrooms do you have here? And he was like, 150. I said, well, you need 120 litres storage water for each room. I was like, that's near 30,000 litres. I was like, I would fill the room you're standing in here to the top, to the ceiling, and I could see the colour draining from his face. And I was like, where's your tank room? Where's your pump room? And he was like, oh, I wasn't told any of that. I was like, no, but you're the architect. So you're in charge of this. So I rubbed out the linen. I rubbed out the linen and rubbed out the thingy and wrote linen in the wee small one and drew a line down that one and went water plant room, heat plant room, and went, you'll pass your exam now. But that's the problem. They're not being led by people who are, without being disrespectful, professionals in the current state of affairs in construction.
I think a lot of designers don't actually realise how massive the M&E installations are in projects. They very much drive a lot of the major projects.
BIM, worldwide, BIM's always been fanfared as the architect's tool. you know, there's so much more for me in a Revit model than there is an architect, with no disrespect to any architect. They're the artists who make the building look beautiful, but your building can be as beautiful as you want, but see if people can't breathe and they've nowhere toilet to go to and they've no water, you know, the building's useless.
So tell us, we're using two different terms here, BIM and Revit.
Yes.
Define those two terms.
Well, BIM is a methodology. It's not tied to any one particular software vendor. It's a mindset, as I always say to people. BIM is basically using a digital dummies model of a building to, as I said before, get it all right, make your mistakes, come up with the plan of how we're going to build this thing, a dry digital run, and then VDC is the process of using that digital model to produce the actual physical building. So that's virtual design construction. So BIM and VDC aren't a software package, isn't owned by anyone. It is a workflow, it is a mindset, it's a methodology of work that you're actually harnessing the power of these digital tools and models to drive efficiency and construction on site, so that we're building it exactly how it should be with minimal wastage, exactly at the time that we've planned to take. And that can only be done using these new modern tools and workflows. You think about it in the broader scheme of material planning, programming, 4D animations, all can be done long ahead of time in the digital model if you have enough time, obviously. And that really is what the difference. But Revit is just a authoring tool, just like AutoCAD. So you can produce, Revit is merely an authoring tool to author geometry with data inside it. That's all it's for. It's the same as using 3D CAD or any of the SolidWorks, Solid Edge, SketchUp, you name it. They all fall under the umbrella of BIM. If they can produce geometry that can be used to construct something, it's BIM.
So Revit as such, does it take the AutoCAD drawings and produce a model from those?
Obviously,
it's taking that data, yeah.
Yeah, Revit's the oldest BIM tool that's there. It was originally started by the Revit Corporation way back in 2001, I think, and then Autodesk caught eye of it and they bought it around about 2003 or 4, I think, and just rebranded it as Revit. And Revit is short for revise it. That's actually what Revit means. In the old school CADs, when you think about it, if you had a GA plan and you had a section, if you moved things around your GA plan, the section didn't follow suit because there were two different geometries that were completely separate.
Yeah.
So the idea of it back then was, well, hey, why don't we make a 3D engine that when we do move objects around, it's reflected in every view, and views are no longer hand-drawn, they're generated. That was the idea of, and then if we revise it, we can see the revisions really quickly. So that's where Revit came from. And it is the monopoly in the market. It is the biggest. You know, there are other ones out there. There's Bentley are doing a good. They have a CAD platform that's 2D and 3D, which is pretty good too. There are other ones out there, but by far and wide, worldwide, Revit is the biggest tool in use today.
See, to go back a step, Gary, just put that in perspective. What's the turnover then of Kane at the moment?
Last year, I think we turned over 80 million.
80 million. Like it's worth just taking a pause on that there. That's a mechanical and electrical company. Most main contractors out there are not turning 80 million pounds, but you're a subcontractor. You're turning 80 million quid. You're based in Castlewellan, rural Castlewellan. Now you are based in Banbridge, and you're working to some of the biggest main contractors in the world.
And I think, Jared, to put it into context, you also have the other part of the company, Alternative Heat, which is really part of the same group as such.
Yes.
What sort of turnover did they have last year?
I think they're something similar.
So there's £150 million turnover from a small mechanical company from Castlewellan. That's fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Name drop of some of your clients you're working for. Are you working for like Balfour Beatty, Mace, some of the big contractors?
McLaren, we're doing quite a lot of projects at the moment. We're doing McLaren, we're working for Wilmot Dixon, Balfour Beatty, the Canary Wharf contractors, John Sisk. My goodness, there's so many. We've done work for Boygs, we've done work for nearly all the big tier ones, certainly in the UK, know who we are, or if they haven't worked for us, I would certainly know who we are. I don't think I've done any work with Mace, to be fair, but
see, just to pause that, how did that company grow from working locally in County Down to working for the biggest contractors in the world? That's over a relatively short period.
You're not listening to all because of Gary.
No, definitely not. Listen, I've played my part in the company, but listen, I am surrounded by some of the best professionals in the industry, honestly. I'm very, very privileged to work with all the men and women of Kane's. The team that run Kane's, the McMullen family, are a fantastic bunch of guys. I love working for them.
Is that the secret ingredient? Is that a family-run company there? It's got bigger, but the same ingredients, the same culture hasn't hasn't altered. Is that what
Yeah,
it's about?
I mean, I started with Kane's, there was maybe 10 of us, 12 of us, and it was very much a family environment. It was all the McMullins and their mother, Mary, who's a lovely, lovely woman as well. And it was always very much, you know, we're all down to the pub on a Friday after work, and it was always like that in the early days, and that, how would you say, that mindset, that family environment has never changed, even though we're up to 200 employees over 3 or 4 offices now. The team at Kane are brilliant.
So you've got 5 brothers working there?
Yes.
And the same 5 brothers are still there, very much in the business?
Very much. I think John retired there last year. I think he hung his boots up, he had had enough, but certainly Martin and Cahill are hands-on every day, leading Kane, leading the whole charge.
They're
leading
coming
the whole
in, they're there
every single
half
day.
8 o'clock, whatever they're
6 in the morning to 6 at night, every day, 12 hours a day.
Sitting
They're
at their
there
lunch with the staff.
every day. And they're brilliant. What can I say? They're fantastic. They're a real inspiration to me.
Yeah.
The two men, you know, how they've turned that business from a residential plumbing into the huge behemoth that it is today is inspiring for me, and I've been really privileged to be part of that journey.
I think it's a fantastic success story. We haven't even touched on that hotel.
We haven't.
Hi, the Claridge Hotel, yeah.
Claridge Hotel, absolutely. So,
Well, it's a good one to get into with the technologies and stuff.
Jared, you've been involved in a little bit of.
So I was out there in your offices in 2019, and I knew I was going to an M&E firm, Kane. I remember visiting and going, hold on here, this is a huge company. And it's a massive success story. But like so many contractors, it doesn't shout enough about itself. I read articles on the construction Inquirer and say Kane Group wins another £10 million project. Kane Group wins another project in Canary Wharf. And I go, wow, this is huge stuff. But it's not shouting about itself.
But Jared,
There's a huge story.
Isn't that the discussion we keep having here?
Yeah,
We're so great patting ourselves on the back within the industry, but we're very insular. We don't tell the rest of the industry or the rest of, you know, the country what we're doing and our successes. You know, and that's an issue now with this labour shortage because people don't actually understand how great an industry we have because we don't tell people.
I think it's our mindset. You know, it's get the job done. You know, we'll pat ourselves to the back later. Our place is very much, you know, focused on the work, focused on the job. Everyone's happy, you know, it's a really good environment to work in. They treat us very well. The benefits that are on for every employee are phenomenal. They really look after us really well, and I think that is a big driver in the success too, that everyone's really happy in their role. Everyone respects each other left and right. You know, you can see all the people around you, and everyone can see each other working as equally as hard, so it can drive everybody in a group collective together.
It also sounds like the guys have a great vision and are quite happy to bring the right people and to transform that vision into reality, don't they?
Very, very open. You know, we have staff briefings every quarter, and they always keep the workforce in the loop as to what's going on, the developments, key people coming into roles. It's not sort of cloak and dagger from above and you'll do what you're told. It is very much a collective. We are Team Kane. That's why I always put in my LinkedIn post, Team Kane.
Great
it's
culture.
A very strong culture in our place. Yeah, we are.
It's Kane. It's not Kane Group anymore.
No, we just go by Kane now. Yeah, we've
that's
kind
a
of dropped
strong
that.
enough brand in itself.
Yeah, we rebranded there maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, just down to Kane on its own, and it is an extremely strong brand. It's recognised all over the world now. You know, our work on the digital side certainly has touched all corners of the earth now. You know, where our models are getting used everywhere.
I think the one side we haven't touched on yet is the pre-construction side. That is the digital construction umbrella, as we call it. Tell us more then how that moves into the MMC, the prefabricated units, and how it actually helps the construction process.
Well, in my journey, sort of, I got to a point where I had got the Revit up to real speed. You know, we'd conquered a lot of technologies and it was running really well. And then it became the actual application was the problem. They had this brilliant model, but everybody on the ground was ignoring it or not using it, and the installs were varying widely. So as part of my stepping up into this new role, that was actually just saying, right, we'll park the Revit and the BIM, almost, not park it, but you know, it's self-sufficient, it's okay. Now we'll start looking at the wider outreach in the company and the operations guys. Why are you not looking at digital model? Why are you still looking at 2D drawings? You know, you're running around measuring tapes, measuring off drawings that are printed at the wrong scale. Like, what are we doing, guys? This is not the vision that I had of it all being prefabricated and put together. It all comes down to the process. So
sounds like a normal day in construction, to be honest. You know?
The old school, yes, and that was where the pain points came from. I've spent 20 years of my life watching people have a real go at designing something and then literally it going together how it wanted on site, and then the two never come back together again. So my vision coming from the component design is, if I design this thing, it should get built exactly how it should. So the workflow around that, of how we translate the model to the site, what tools they were using, were they still using paper drawings, how are we QAing our stuff. So a lot of the surrounding technologies all started just to click into place as we kind of went through. None of this was done as a planned project years in advance. It was, seat of your pants work, like, will this work, yes or no, get it working on site. The Claridge Hotel example was a brilliant one. We were offered the chance to look at that job way back in 2017, I think it was, and straight away when we looked at it, we were like, wowee, that is phenomenal. The amount of services that were in
Put
those
that in
floors.
value for the listeners at that Claridge's Hotel, just to touch on it.
I suppose,
value are you
yeah,
talking
I've
about?
spoke about it so much, I'm probably fed up listening to me talk about it, but the Claridge's Hotel basically is one of the most prestigious hotels in London.
In the world?
In
let's
the
put it.
world, to be fair, yes, in
Yeah.
Europe. It's one of the old buildings. The buildings there started for about 1800, so they're 200-odd-year-old buildings. It's known as the place to go for royalty and rock stars and all that sort of stuff. So if anyone's coming over to meet royalty, they stay at Claridge's. That was always the way. But when it was bought by the Mayborn Group in the early 2000s, they sort of looked at it and went, right, there's no spa, there's no swimming pool, there's no amenities here. We're starting to look bad. A lot of the surrounding hotels were bringing their stuff up to standard, and the Claridge's were starting to show its age a wee bit. So when they actually looked at how they were going to replace anything, they were landlocked. They were in between buildings. They couldn't expand left or right. When they looked to go up, the existing MEP plant rooms were situated on the roof level. So when they actually looked at a feasibility study of what they were actually going to do traditional, they would have had to close the hotel for 3 years to take away the MEP plant room, build 2 new floors with all the stuff that they wanted, and then reinstate a brand new plant room on the roof. And there was all sorts of problems with that, and they were worried that if they had it closed for 3 years, that all of their top level clientele wouldn't come back. They would just go somewhere else, and they would prefer somewhere else. So they started looking at it out of the box ideas. Well, what the hell can we do here? And they approached a few different people. I think it was Arup were the consultants, the main structural consultants, and then McGee's were approached.
That's the Donegal based company, isn't it?
Yep. So McGee's come up with this radical idea of undercutting the hotel and constructing a 6-storey concrete substructure below the hotel, whilst the hotel stayed open and trading, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. I was actually on through it whenever it was done. Mark Allen
unbelievable
gave me a tour
feat of
from
engineering
McGee's,
and
it
an
was,
absolute privilege.
they were actually digging down almost a metre at a time and kept, so the foundations went down as they went down. All electric machines.
The electrical,
it
the
was
existing raft was a metre
was
thick,
amazing.
the basement, and they cut a 2 metre square hole through that, and they dropped down, and then they dug another 2 metres, and they started tunneling. And it was actually a squad of Donegal miners.
Lovely
They
tunnels.
hand dug tracks in every direction to find the underpinning of each structural column of the building. They were using all of the laser measurements and point cloud tools and all that kind of stuff. And once they found the position of, I think it was 64 columns, they then started digging straight down, and they dug down inside a concrete caisson, and they kept bringing the caissons in and putting them down. And I think they dug something like 70 or 80 metres deep, and then cast a big huge bell pile, and then constructed a standard concrete column above the pile, leaving all this rebar in for the floors. And then once they got to that stage, they had sort of all the Lego machines watching from all the surrounding buildings, had laser targets on the machines, and were watching from every angle. And when they got all the concrete columns constructed, they then shifted the weight onto the new thingies to put like hydraulic bags in between the top of the column heads and the underside of the raft, and they transferred the weight from the existing soil to the actual legs. And then once that had moved, I think the building dropped half an inch in total. And everyone's still inside having their afternoon tea. The people paying £25,000 a night up sleeping in their panties.
Gary,
Didn't know there was no army of
They woke up an
men.
inch lower.
That's the BBC. What was the title of that documentary? Was
Oh,
it the BBC
a
Hotel Mega Build or something?
The Mayfair Mega Build, I think is what it was
Yeah,
called,
it
yeah.
was.
And we featured in the 3rd episode.
Yeah.
Not too much. I was
Fantastic,
actually
yeah.
a bit annoyed we didn't get more airtime on it.
But see, even just to dwell on that, that's a mega project in London. And again, a Banbridge firm is front and centre. You were on the site. How did you end up on the site, incidentally?
I was pricing some work on it.
You were pricing
I
some
was
work,
actually
right?
pricing work on it, yeah, because it was a Northern Ireland consultant here
Right.
who was actually really best, who were the cost consultant on it.
Remember that? Yeah.
So we'd priced quite a few different projects on it. I think we'd priced some of the works in the roof actually, because we were taking the steel frame stub.
It was
up
very
to
much a
add an extra
Northern Irish
roof on it.
project. If you watch it,
Yeah.
every company
And
involved
why,
was from
why was so
home
many
here.
firms from Northern Ireland involved in that project?
I'm not too sure. I think the guy that run the hotel was from Northern Ireland, so maybe swayed it a wee
Paddy's
bit.
from Northern Ireland, you had the cost consultant from Northern Ireland.
Really and best were
yes,
on it.
but
M&E consultants.
But their attitude was they always went with Northern Ireland, no matter what it was, supply chain consultants, because they believed they were the best. Because they had the work ethic, they had the quality, they had the resources, and they just had the determination, I would say, is probably the bigger part of it.
I'm glad you said it, because I was going to say the
Yeah.
same. I
Yeah.
think just surely the skill.
And that's through and through. And the group had 2 or 3 Northern Ireland contractors working for them who still work for them day in, day out, and they will say the same. These guys have got the work ethic, they've got the quality.
Like Stuthers do work for them too. Stuthers were there on site too, so it's
So
all.
you'd really and best. What was the Maher Felt firm was on it?
Well, you've Piper Hill, or massive on it. Piper Hill still doing a lot.
One of the episodes was dedicated to them. That was all the decorative sort of fascia windows and roofs, the sort of dormer roofs that
Yes,
come in.
Satanta.
They all come in prefab and set in.
Yeah, Satanta's actually up there.
Satanta.
doing-
That's
yeah,
the one I'm looking for.
yeah.
I'd actually introduced Satanta to it.
The Cribbin guys, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brought Mark in and introduced.
We
him to
brought
it.
in
Really
so many of the
impressed, yeah.
technologies that we use today in
Fantastic.
that project, and it was, as I said before, it was seat air pants. Will it work? The first thing we did was point cloud scan the basement. So
Yeah.
same thing. I walked on that side when it was finished and looked down the hole and was like, oh my god, like I've never seen anything like this. You're in the middle of London and you walk through a door and you look down and it's a 50-metre drop down to the bottom floor, and when you walk downstairs it's the size of a football pitch.
Yeah.
Underground, and you're 60 metres underground. You're like, wow, this is phenomenal.
Satanta rang me one day, Mark, and he says, I got a phone call here from these guys about this hotel, and he says, they want me to give them a price to actually prefab a dormer with slates on the roof, doors fitted, inside plasterboard. He says, are they for real?
That was on the programme. Yeah.
And they did it.
And they did it,
And
yeah.
they did it, yeah. Why not?
Absolutely.
We were the same. So when they brought us in, they all looked at me and went, they're sort of nodding at me like, look at this place. And I was like, we can't weld down here, we can't grind down here, we can't do anything down here. So this all has to come in prefabricated, ready to go. And it all had to come down that one shaft. So there was one main shaft that was the main access route for all of the materials in and out. And there was a separate wee man one, but that was also the ventilation shaft. So, we were
And
lowering
access
stuff
to the whole
down.
building. Remember the time we went to the tour, there was one little small gate, and a lorry reversed in, one of the McKee lorries that was filled all day long. There's this little dribble of soil coming out. It took some like 2 or 3 hours to fill the lorry, and 24/7, lorries just backed in.
Yeah. And
Soil
from the front of the hotel, that was the whole
for
thing.
months. You wouldn't
None
have
of the
known.
clientele could know that anything was happening.
You wouldn't
There
have
were
known.
stipulations in the contract. You weren't allowed to walk around to the front doors with your high vis and your helmet on. There was a massive fine if you were caught inside the hotel with your work gear on. The whole thing was that it had to be completely silent and not noticed to anyone. So like standing at the front of the hotel, you wouldn't have a clue that there was an army of men below your feet digging, and all that going on at the back door. As you said, it was so boarded off with one door that you wouldn't even have knew. The door opened and the thing went in, the door closed, and you wouldn't have knew it was going on.
So who was the principal contractor then on that?
Well, McGee's actually built.
But are they not like
They're
a
the-
piling or
yes.
a
There
groundwork
was no
subcontractor,
principal
are they?
contractor.
We
It was
were,
really-
believe it
yeah.
or not, we
Yous-
actually
yous
were.
actually
We
were.
took
You're
on
the
tier
principal
one.
contractor?
We were, yes, for that works. We
Right,
took on
wow.
tier one. Yeah.
Really, the way we really best on it was to book it all into packages.
Right, like a
For
construction
example, there
management.
would have been a enabling package, there would have been a package to provide the temporary works, been a package for the tower crane, all broken into the package and then project managed very much by them. So each contractor that came in would have become a principal contractor during the course of their works.
For
and
their
then
own works,
Once
essentially.
they were finished, somebody else would have come in. So,
Right.
and that was all part of the success of it, I suppose.
I think so. Yes, we had a lot of control on it.
Because it was so
and
complex.
we were able to make real
Give the
decisions.
people the
And
most
it's very, very
knowledge and
fast
control
paced.
during their phase of the works,
It was so fast paced at the time.
And how did you guys end up on that job?
I was charged with a concept design at the start. I was just shown it and said, look, we're trying to get in with this. This would be amazing. So I come up with the concept of the lateral frames, everything getting into frames and the frames getting broke down. And we sort of did a pitch to the client then that this is how we would see it. We would have to bring all the pipework in and these lateral frames. The frames would be broken down in half and they would get lowered down. And we did a wee bit of preemptive work on the digital team. And I think that got us over the line and that got us, we were already known at that stage for our work and what we could do. So I don't get into the weeds of the contract and I don't know how it was all done.
Sure, this was touched on earlier. We didn't really expand much on it. I think that's where Kane's success really is now. So much of the MMC. So you're actually making full modules off-site, isn't that correct?
Yes, that's our approach now.
So you come with full service pipes, risers, plant rooms, all
Yep.
prefabricated off-site.
as best as we can. We did a recent one there in Wood Wharf, for example, for Canary Wharf, and we designed, it was a multi-storey 2 towers, J1 and J3, They were about 35 and 32 floors each. And we designed all of the corridors. They were like an H pattern coming out of the risers and into each individual apartment. And we designed each floor to be lateral frames. So when the building was naked and there was no frame on, it was just the steel or the concrete frame. We were able to bring them lateral frames in, just hoist them up and bring them in and just click them all up in. So our precision setting out machine that we do, so we put coordinate points and all the fixing points of the lateral frames, and then long before they're being made, our precision engineer Daniel Lucas comes to site with our total station and he sets those points out to millimetre accuracy, and then we're able to drill that, set the rods and resin anchors, and then actually do a pull test on that long before the stuff comes, so it's all signed off and ready to go, thumbs up. And then when the lateral frames come, they're literally hoisted up, brought in, the plastic sheeting took off, they're hoisted into place, and then all the unions are just cracked together.
So really you have plumbers and electricians working in the factory in Northern Ireland,
Yes.
and stuff's getting installed all across the UK.
Yep, that's exactly what we're doing.
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
See,
It really is.
I read like the Belfast Telegraph there on a Tuesday night, and there'll be a splash from, let's say, Invest NI. No disrespect for Invest NI, do a good job, and it'll be Newry firm wins export contract. But when you read into it, it's maybe like £100,000 sale to Dundalk. That's great, but it's nothing
Not
on the
what you
scheme
guys
of
are
what's
doing. But
going
there's
on
so
here.
many companies in Northern Ireland doing the exact same.
Yeah.
You know, really making waves in the UK
Yeah.
market. Like, let's look at all the tier ones. You know, how many Northern Ireland contractors are there in the top 50?
Yeah, it's not luck, I'll tell you that much.
That's
It's
far from
Yeah.
luck.
it's the management team and the SLT and the leadership team and Kane's are phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal group of people.
So have you positioned yourselves now to effectively be the preferred M&E subcontractor to a lot of the large tier ones?
We're hoping that's the case. Obviously, you know,
That's the target, and you're seen to be getting there.
Kane's are sort of, you know, it says, it's like, what, you know, we do what we say. That's the attitude, that's our motto, you know. It speaks for itself. That's what we like to think about our work and how we approach things. It speaks for itself. We don't have to advertise
you,
and shout about it.
you aren't sitting with a team of business development managers touring around the UK. I don't
No.
think you are.
Well, we do. We have a business development manager, Andrew Walker. He is our lead BDM, and he does brilliant work. He does a lot of scouting about. A lot of that is done,
Yeah.
but it's maybe not broadcast enough. I know that
No.
the company probably aren't. I know I certainly shout it a lot on LinkedIn. It's become a bit of a running joke. You know, I do a lot of self promotion on LinkedIn, but it's the same idea. You know, it's I'm not shouting about, look at me. It's just, this is what we do, and
Yeah.
it speaks for itself.
Your portfolio, the CV, is really strong.
That's amazing. I'm bowled over bat. You know what I mean? I had a rough journey getting here in my career. Like, I had jumped around a lot of companies, and it was a sort of.
So tell us more about that.
Yeah.
What challenges have you met in your career?
It was harking back that time in 08 when everything sort of fell apart and construction just took a complete nosedive. I was working here in Northern Ireland and just couldn't get any work, for example, everywhere I went. At that stage, I was in my late 20s, and I was going and sitting for interviews for sort of contracts manager, site manager roles, and there was gentlemen 15, 20 years ahead of me willing to take the 20 grand pay cut because they had no work whatsoever. So for 12 months, I couldn't get work anywhere, and I ended up getting about 10 months I spent at home with my youngest children.
Yeah.
Spent at home just being a dad and
You're a parent
looking
at
after
this
them.
stage.
Yep. My partner at the time, she went out and worked, so I just did what I had to do to survive at that time. But then I managed to find a job through a company called GMG who are out of Lackey, and that was the Southwest Acute Hospital in Enniskillen. So I was on that for nearly 2 years as a site-based project manager, and that's really where I got all my learned Revit. It was Mercury with the M&E guys on that, and that's where I found Revit, and that was the whole awakening for me of, my goodness, look at this stuff. That's where I sort of laser focused on, like, yeah, that's for me. So I kind of jumped on between roles. I was site engineer, site manager, contracts manager. I kind of jumped all around, but I always tell people that was a collective sort of knowledge gaining process to be where I am now. To understand BIM properly and be able to do BIM properly, you really do have to understand construction.
Oh,
For people that sit in an office and never set foot in a site and have never screwed a bit of unistrut, you know, they've never done that. They don't know what it takes to put it together to make it right. And then that's why, you know, outsourcing for me doesn't work a lot of times. You pay a company across the other side of the world to produce you a BIM model. Yeah, they can put 10 engineers on it overnight and get you 100 hours of work in one day. But when you get it, it's complete nonsense.
Yeah, of course.
Doesn't work. Does not
With the
work.
right coordination.
And that's the
or
problem in
thinking
the
about
BIM
use of
industry
the
and a
building
lot
or-
of companies that don't take it seriously. They don't do what we do and say, right, we're going to invest in this, we're going to actually learn it, we're going to live and breathe it. It's just a tick box. We'll stick it out to some boy over in India and he'll get us it back, and sure, we'll just that old mindset of the drawings will sort it
Yeah.
on site. Today's workplace doesn't work like that. Construction doesn't work like that
So,
today.
tell me, where does AI fit into all this?
Well, it's the silver bullet that has just appeared in the last 12 months. It's going to either make or break it, I think. It's a double-edged sword for me, it really is. I've been using AI myself. It is very good. It's not to be trusted, let's say. It'll send you up the garden path. It'll give you the wrong answers with great confidence. So
Yeah.
my problem is that it has so much potential in what we do. I see it almost, if you imagine, I always use this analogy of difficulty in life being like a staircase, and you're standing on the step that everything's okay, everything's achievable, and the step in front of you is it's a bit more difficult, and then the next one's just a bit progressively harder until you get the impossible. AI is going to let us take 2 steps forward. So the things that are really difficult at the minute, AI will do it like that, no problem. So we'll start to be able to release from the mundane tasks to start thinking about the next evolution of what we're doing. So writing emails, moving data, all that will just melt away. But the problem I have is that that's brilliant for a company and that we can make processes, but for the people, the human aspect is just to go, my 8-hour day's just done in a day there, happy days, that's me for the rest of the day. And they don't use that time wisely to check what they're doing, check the quality of their output. Your example on LinkedIn, the constant battles I'm having with LinkedIn people at the time, they literally ask ChatGPT a question, it reams them back a whole big paragraph and an infographic, which Stevie Wonder would see that it's wrong. I don't even understand how people put that out. And they put that out and just sit there and wait for the praise. And then I'm in straight into the jugular, like, boom.
You're challenging all the
Oh,
time.
come on, wise up. I didn't spend 20 years of my life to get to where I am, to be dictated to by somebody 3 weeks out of university who's mastered ChatGPT. And that's the
But
problem.
how do you find that when you challenge people? Because we're becoming a society now that we're scared to challenge.
Yes, well, that's,
So how do you stand out from the crowd and challenge? Is it your knowledge you have to use? Is it, how do we stop people suddenly becoming experts because they can use ChatGPT? How do we challenge them?
by shining a light on them. For me, it's a spotlight. I put them on the spot and I ask them a question or I ask them something about it. And it's so disheartening that all they do is take my question and put it into ChatGPT and give me it back, and I can tell straight away their answer is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's not the person in that, and I think that's very disingenuous. Whenever I deal with people, I want to deal with a human. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to talk to an AI sock puppet. That's what I call these people now. You're literally just a little sock puppet on the hand of ChatGPT, and it's almost like I can see it. And I have all these people from all around the world interacting with me on LinkedIn, but it's the same. It's like a shapeshifter. That's what I wrote today to someone. It's like the same computer entity that I'm just seeing with a different face. It's the same tone. It's the same answers.
pattern,
It's the
yeah.
same pattern. It's the same rhythm. It's like, how are we going to progress as a society of humans if half of us are going to fall back and let the computer speak for us? I think that's the real double-edged sword with it.
Yeah.
The people who will do well, like me, will excel. I will explode with AI. I'm going to go mad with it. But the slackers in life are just going to go flipping brilliant. I'm just going to let that do all my job. I'm going to sit here and watch TV while the computer's doing my job. And they don't realise that can be seen through as quick as anything. And that's my remedy for it, is talking about it, is shining light on it, is education to these young
I mean,
people in their careers.
some
Don't
people-
do that.
yeah.
I would hate to get to the end of my career and think that everything I've achieved is through an AI doing it for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'll retire in 15, 20 years satisfied that I did the hard work, and you have to do the hard work.
But some people are calling it, it's the next technological revolution.
It is. It's going to
So
be the
it
new
is.
iPhone moment, like,
Yeah.
without a doubt. It's like a carpenter 100 years ago being handed an electric drill. You'd be like, what is this? And we didn't lose carpenters; they just got better. And that's going to be the same for architects, engineers,
As long as
everybody.
we embrace it
As long
properly.
as we use it in the right way, and it is a double-edged sword.
There's a massive
Well,
ethical
mindset, yeah.
question
There
around
is.
it all. And it has to be raised, the ethical question. We have
Big
to use
time.
it in the right manner.
Yes, I
don't
would
we?
hate to ever think that you would replace a human with an AI. Oh my God, that I don't own a company, but certainly it would not be my policy. I think I would
No.
have stern words with the company if they ever said to me, look, we're going to let such and such go, and sure, go you and figure out an AI way to do it. I would just refuse point blankly. I'm not going to do that. I'm a technologist, yes, but I'm a humanist. Love
So
all
it has to be there as a tool to assist, not to
big
replace.
time, not to
Yeah.
replace. It's
I would agree completely. Somebody asked me what's your thoughts on AI. I completely embrace it. Look forward to it. What'll I be working on in 5 years? I've no idea. Sure, nobody knows. Will I be doing something different? I would imagine so. Will you be doing something different in 5 years? You're bound to be.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The speed of technology changes unreal.
Yeah.
Like the VR stuff that you sort of see me talking about and hear about, I'm sort of shouting about at the minute. Like the change in that technology over the last 6 years is actually jaw dropping.
Yeah, very much.
As a context, one of the first sort of digital tools that we brought in for Claridge is when we looked at that and we realised, oh my goodness, like this isn't going to work on traditional AutoCAD. We need to do it all in Revit. And then we're like, how do we even ingest that? You know, trying to look at that on the screen, you're like, is that clashing? I don't know. Like, it's crazy. So it was around about that time I started seeing the virtual reality headsets appear. The Oculus Rift came out and I got one straight away. I loved it. And being a gamer, I was in the games playing away, and a lot of the games you were in and you were maybe walking down an entry or you were in an industrial place and there was ductwork and pipework, and I'm in the game looking up going, I do this day in and day out, like why am I not able to do this? And that's when the penny dropped for me. What a way to look at your Revit models, not from the outside looking in, or God mode as I call it, when you peel the top of the model off and you miss what was on the bit that you peeled away. You know what I mean? So like early days I reached out to the developers of an app that I found at the time. It was called Prospect, by a group called Iris VR, and they were in New York, and again just rang them one day. I went, hello, I'm Gary, I want to use your product, but I've tried it, a demo, and it won't load my models, it just crashes. And they were like, oh my goodness, you know, the first person to ever happen to, would you mind sharing models with us? And I was like, yep. So I got an NDA signed and we started releasing our models to the team, and they were like, oh my goodness, we've never seen anything like it. Because even back then our BIM models were ridiculous. Everyone else was always like bare minimum in the models, where I was modelling every screw, nut, washer, everything had to go in. So people were looking at our models like, something wrong with you, you know, you're not right. But look, that's the way it is today. So we started working with them guys, and very, very quickly they improved their app and improved the thingy. So we got into a working relationship with those guys, and ultimately those guys were bought by Autodesk, and I've now became the Autodesk XR team. So through working with those guys over 10 years, I've met the head of XR at Autodesk. I've met Andrew Anganos, the CEO himself. Like, I've got a real good working relationship with Autodesk. But to go back to technology, for Claridge's, it used to take us almost a day to get a VR scene of one floor out, and maybe only even half the floor. So there was a disconnect. By the time we got the VR experience, I had 12 technicians drawn all day, so it could have changed quite a bit. So today, and that was on a £5,000 PC with the latest headset. It cost a fortune to use VR in 2017. And fast forward to today, I've been working with Autodesk team now for a couple of years to develop their new flagship product, which is Workshop XR, which is basically ACC in VR. And it works on the Quest 3 headset, standalone with no PC, and it can load not just one floor, it can load the entire model.
So it's almost live.
It is now live. When my
Fantastic,
technicians draw on the model and they publish at the end of the day, within an hour I can stick the VR headset on and I am in the model and I can see the changes, and I can walk about the model in VR.
But you're using that looking for like a clash detection, service runs, etc. But it's surely even from a client's point of view, they can walk their building, force built.
That's exactly what we did way back in the day with Claridge's, with Mayborn Group. They wanted their plant room to be like the Google plant room, really, really colourful. So we were able to actually go in and colourize all their systems and say, here's 3 options. Which colour scheme do you want? And they were able to go in with the VR headset and walk around and go, I like 2 better than 3. Right, we'll go with 2.
And do these look almost like live pictures now?
Because our models
no
are so
block or render. It
is literally
fantastic.
One-to-one scale.
You have to be using that as a sales tool as well.
We do now. We do.
Yeah.
Very much so. I'm talking about it on LinkedIn. We've literally only brought that product in the last couple of weeks, so there is going to be a whole big LinkedIn media shouting about it. But yes, we're pushing everybody in our when we're working with our main contractors, I'm pushing uphill to them, saying, "Here's what I'm able to do." I'm streaming what I'm doing and saying, "Is there an opportunity that users would do this with us as well?"
So, does this fail if nobody else adopts it? If you're only there looking at the services, surely if every subcontractor, be it the steel, the shuttering, the entire process comes into this.
It helps us. Whether other people are or they aren't, it helps us because we can then point out the mistakes really quickly and easily too.
Yeah.
So when something's missed out in the model, it's very easy for me to stand in VR and go and take a picture of it and then just email it to somebody and say, here, that's not right.
But do you see the industry changing massively over the next few years? It'll become very much a technology-centric industry.
Yes, very much so.
Particularly in the pre-construction.
I don't think we'll have a choice.
Augmented reality?
We're doing AR too, yes, we'll have augmented reality. We have a full XR stack, so obviously the VR is when we're still, before we've made anything. VR is so that we can pace it out and feel it out. Yes, everything's where it's meant to go. Then we use the precision setting out stuff to set it out exactly where it's supposed to go when it's all prefabbed. And then what we do is we'll come in with the AR tablet at the very end. And there's a video on my LinkedIn if you go and look for it. Basically, it's me in Wood Wharf, and I start looking at a rig, and as I go up the rig, I'm fading the BIM model in and out. And when I say that it is millimetre accurate, I mean even the clips in the wall, even the the phenolic blocks and the clips are exact. I mean exact, and that it was almost a tear came to me that day when I had that video, because that was 15 years of my work on all these different surrounding technologies: point cloud, precision setting out, Revit, Navisworks, cloud ACC, getting that information out to the team, making sure the team are putting it in. When I went round with that AR tablet and it was, I mean, millimetre accurate, you couldn't believe it. I could have just hung my hat up at that stage. It's like, my job is done. I have just created this entire end-to-end workflow with this technology that we can be certain of what we're designing, and we can make damn sure that's exactly what goes in, exactly where we said it's going in, at pace with minimum waste. It's the holy grail of MMC, this whole thing. Now, it's not to say we're perfect at it, obviously we're not, but we're getting there. It's getting better and better as time goes on.
Must be a great opportunity to use that system as well for training.
It is, yes.
It has to really change the way we train people, because this is one of the things, and we've talked about this as well in the past. Jared and I are both on the board of the CITB, so we're always very prevalent of looking at where's the industry going,
Yeah.
how do we train people, is the training systems right, is the apprenticeships right?
There's a company over in England who I'm friendly with called RIVR. I don't think it's called Reaver. I don't know how you sell it, but it stands for reality and virtual reality, and that's exactly what they do. It's training.
Yeah.
They do forensics training for the fire brigade and for like crime scene investigators, where they simulate a fire, simulate a crash, and then they go in with the point cloud scanners and they render it all, and then they produce an actual VR environment where you can walk around with tools, almost like a game, and collect clues and all that sort of stuff. And it's actually
I'm just
on the
thinking,
job training.
let's say people even using 360 excavators, use the virtual reality
been
for
thinking about-
excavating around live services. And,
Simulating a failure, say for
Yeah,
example.
simulate a
Say
failure, see how
put
you
everybody
react,
in a VR headset and simulate a high lift, and then simulate a failure that the thing falls and a computer character gets crushed, and engage everybody's reactions. What do you do? Do you ring? Do you first aid? And you can actually train people. And then because it's in VR and because it's immersive, it really hits home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what we find in the design reviews that we do in VR. When you walk in and you see it in your mind's eye, you go, oh yeah, I totally see what I've got to do.
very
See,
exciting
looking at
for industry,
2D
isn't it?
SketchUps, and you're getting hand markups from somebody that maybe doesn't speak English, and he left the job 6 months ago and that was his markup from back then. Like, that all falls apart so quickly. The ability for me to just phone you on site and say, here, stick that lid on there, will you? Two lids on, and we'll walk in and we'll go, there's a problem there. And you can actually stand and doodle it now too. So you were saying, like, don't put that there, move that up there and put that around there. But the whole thing is, when the technician takes the headset off, it's like you and I have showed him here in the room.
Yes.
He understands it inherently. So the turnaround in that is unbelievable.
You don't even need to be in the same room.
No, I can be at home, I can
You
be in
be at home,
London, I can
walking
be
around,
anywhere.
walking inside.
I can be in Timbuktu as long as I've got Starnet.
amazing?
You know what I mean? I can be anywhere. It's amazing.
Isn't
Technology
isn't it a great future for the industry?
it is, and that rolls back to your comment about how do the kids. It needs
Yeah.
we need to get back into the schools. We need to go show the kids. I did it recently where I went to my daughter's school, and in her class, and I said, "Who's heard of construction?" And all the kids put their hands up. And then I said, "Who's heard of digital construction?" And they all just sat there like, I'm like, and that's the problem. Nobody even
And is the
understands.
problem. That's the problem.
Construction's just thought about standing in a muddy field up to your knees in mud, miserable. That's not the case, and it starts from the school. So it starts very, very early. So I'm writing a lot of books at the moment. I'm writing an introduction book to Revit, and I've another couple of books penned up where I'm going to actually write children's books in the vein of, this is to introduce what digital construction is. This is when an architect reads the
Isn't that
tools
a great idea?
as
to
early
actually
as
introduce the
possible.
Concept, yeah. Because our schools aren't doing the process. Our careers teachers are failing. It's just not working. The children are not understanding.
Even the
construction.
lecturers in university, I think there should be a requirement for them to do a year in industry every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do 20 years teaching, because after 10 years,
You're not relevant.
you're not relevant
It's a
anymore.
flaw. It's a flaw. It has to
Doesn't
be a
it
flaw.
Big time.
Even
Doesn't it
the,
flaw?
I know up there that university beside us, they're still teaching JCT. Why? Why are they teaching it? NEC is a contract of choice here,
Yeah.
but that's the way they all learned it 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure on them to change.
Even if you take it to the next stage, and this is what gets me, I talk to a lot of people about the BIM and the Revit. There is so much opportunity for that to be used. Even I'm a quantity surveyor.
Yes.
Nobody is using the model to actually quantify materials. The
wasn't-
quantities can be produced from a Revit model.
That was another thing. We used
Why
to
is that
draw
not
the
been used?
bare minimum. That used to be Marty said to us at the start, don't draw anything more than you need to, because it was such a big cost and we
Yeah.
hadn't realised the value against the cost. Whereas now it's totally flipped. Everything has to be modelled, and what it does is it opens up digital BOQs and
Does.
stuff, all that kind of stuff.
And as
yeah.
you say, it can open
Asset
up
tracking.
the whole programming, the scheduling.
Everything, 4D animation.
Ah,
We've
that's-
started doing 4D animating now, and that's
The opportunities
proven
are
itself
endless,
as well.
but our universities are now at the stage that they're now starting to teach AutoCAD. That's how far behind they are.
And even when I did that industry feedback forum and I said to the architects, where's your M&E counterpart? what are they using? Are they drawing around? And they were like, no, they're just sent as Excel tables. And I went, right. And then I went to the mechanical guy and I was like, do you not use Revit? No, why would we use Revit? I'm like, what? You're crazy.
Surely the opportunity here, if you lead it to another stage, is if the industry is moving on so quick and the universities aren't catching up, is a technical apprenticeship the way to go with regards to the industry?
I think so. Like the HLAs are a good thing. This new higher level apprenticeships. You need hands-on. An example I always say to people is like when you study architecture in university, you use Revit as part of your course and you learn how to use Revit. See if you do design engineering like me, there's no course anywhere in the UK where you can learn to coordinate MEP. What's the rules for ductwork and pipework and how far apart they need to be and slope pipe. You know, you learn a lot in the design side. Yes, you learn the slope pipes and all that kind of stuff, and you do your pipe size and then your table charts and all that kind of stuff. But nowhere will ever teach you how to coordinate. That is always a sink or swim. Every single person in the last 20 years who's came and worked for me to learn how to coordinate MEP services have literally learned in a baptism of fire, literally sink or swim, plop, and you go, can you do it? Yes or no? And if it's no, they're out the door. And if it's yes, happy days, they've done well. But then we've ended up training half the industry here in Northern Ireland. You know, that everybody wants to come and learn from me, and then we end up training half the places out, and we're starting to see a lot of people who used to work for me working in other places and work regurgitated and stuff like that. So like for me it's not good. We're run out of people, and that's what we've had to bring quite a lot of international people in lately, and that's good, don't get me wrong. It's great to bring people from all over the world and bring in, you know, knowledge from everywhere, but at the same time where's our homegrown
people coming through? Did you move then from Castlewellan to Banbridge just to get a wider pool of people? Was it a geographical reason?
No, I think
moved
at the
to
time
Banbridge?
they were looking to expand on the site that they were on,
Yeah.
and they weren't allowed. I think the council and down that direction were like, no, lads, these aren't built anymore. They're where you were, because it was a farmhouse out. It wasn't an industrial estate. It was quite rural where they were original. It wasn't the right place.
But Banbridge suits you. You're in a good location there.
So that was the commercial choice that was made by the directors. It was kind of trying to find somewhere close. Most of the people that worked in Kane's would have been Castlewellan direction.
Aye.
So I think they didn't want to go to Belfast because it would have been too far, and I think it was good arterial route. You're halfway between Belfast and on the way to Dublin. It made a lot of sense, yeah.
It's no coincidence to see Glasgow have relocated up to there from
seen
Along.
Yep, seen that recently. Yep, it's a good spot. That's nice. I remember Banbridge years ago just for the coach. I was always at the coach, and then never thought I'd be back there working years later. So you always get a shudder when you're going through the middle of Banbridge. Like, oh, remember that?
We all remember.
So tell me, if we go back, and this is obviously a new area of construction. There you can see this field open up massively.
Aye.
What's the skill sets required? Somebody wants to get into this. What do you think is the core key skills?
Anyone that comes to work for me, I always just look for problem solving skills and being able to think outside the box. Methodical. You have to really tick every box. When you do what I do, you can't sort of half-arse do it. You have to really understand what they're doing and have a passion for it and understand it. And like for me, in my role, it's not a 9-to-5 job. Certainly not. I live and breathe what I do, and it does the wife's head in. Honest to God, we're going to Tesco's and I'm straight away, oh, who done that? I have a snag board out. I'm going, who put that in? Look, it's that.
Like we all do that one, don't we?
It doesn't turn off. If you want to be successful, it's dedication for me. It really is. It's not a 9-to-5 job. And as I said, all the men and women who work for me aren't degree educated engineers with design experience. We do have a squad of design managers who are at that level and they lead our BIM team. But the BIM team, the guys and girls who do that, are just software experts in Revit and being able to drive Revit really well. And they're obviously learning as they progress the M&E side of it. So the Revit technicians are almost teaching the designers Revit a wee bit, and the design managers are inferring the knowledge of technical knowledge to our team. But that is hard because years ago when you were a CAD technician, you were just drawing polylines and circles. You weren't actually drawing the actual fittings. Today you almost need like an NBQ and pipe fitting and ductwork to be able to put these geometries, because you're putting it exactly together in the model as it would on site. So you need to know DW144. You need to know all your BS for all your different pipe systems and stuff. So it's handy to have someone like me who's lived and breathed it on site. I would struggle if anyone who's purely office based has never touched a site.
So what would your advice be to the youth of today? Kids who want to get involved in this side of the industry. How do you get involved in it? What's the route to entry?
Honestly, I would say apprenticeships. I would say go for a trade. At this stage, I think university's gone, to be quite frank.
Technical apprenticeship as such.
I think a technical apprenticeship, if you were looking at a degree out of the end of it, you would be looking at a technical apprenticeship or an HLA route up that direction. But honestly, I think that the speed of technology changing here and the way AI is coming and all, in 5 years' time, I don't think having a degree is going to have the same weight as experience,
Yeah.
for example. So my own son, Gary Jr., I'm sort of pushing him towards doing electrical engineering, but he doesn't want to do the degree. He wants to go the actual trade route.
Good for him.
So for me, I
Great
think the best thing
background.
would go out and hit the sites for 5 or 10 years, get a bit of experience, and then if it's the digital side you want to come in, you'll come back in as the best digital engineer because you understand what you're drawing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same as you were trying to design a car. You have to go and build the car first before you understand how to design one. You need the you can't be all theory and no substance. You have to have both to be successful.
See to dwell on your 10 years. It's a really interesting 10 years you've given there. You've went from struggling to get work off the back of the recession, like everybody. You're no different to everybody there. You've then ended up working on the Mayfair Hotel. A few years later after that, you've juggled BIM introduction. You've Brexit has came along within that as well. Challenges there, I would have thought. You've had a couple of world wars to juggle in among your supply chain too, along with Suez Canal disruption and among all that. So it's been a really interesting 10 years you put in
Has
there.
been, yeah.
Wow.
And you put it in that context, yeah, it has been.
Yeah.
But it's just been the attitude for me. It's just been head down, keep going. That was the reason I got from my mum and dad. You know, no point going about what you're in. Just have a bit of faith in yourself. There's plenty of times in my life where the chips were down and I was getting kicked hard, but I always had that sort of mindset and faith that if I kept my head down and I kept working hard, things would come good. You know, with the right attitude and the right ethos to your life. I think that works.
What I actually think, John, that BIM's really interesting, right? And I think they're leaders in the M&E sector. They absolutely are. And they're probably ahead of some of the principal contractors, I would have thought. But I actually think it's a really interesting story about the leadership in the company.
Oh, very much so. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. It's determination, tenacity, vision is the big word, isn't it?
Yeah, vision, yeah. A
Bold
vision.
having a bold vision and having the tenacity to deliver that vision.
Yeah.
And actually, and the other side of it is they've brought the right people around them.
I think so.
Yeah.
Bring the right people around them and you can do what you want.
Yeah, it's
There are no limitations to it.
And it's a core, modest team of directors there. Would I be right in saying it's like a flat hierarchy? I don't envisage those guys sitting in a desk up on the top stairs on their own. Are they in among the staff?
For a long time they
where
were. Martin's office used to be literally right beside mine in the middle of the production floor. So for a long time, Martin had his finger in every pie, and I suppose he's been the same. It took him a long time to sort of maybe take a couple of steps back, but he's never ever far. You know,
He's not that far away. Sure, he's not.
He knows everything that goes on in that building. He knows every
First name
ins and
terms.
outs, and he knows every person, and it's very personal. Do you know what I mean? It's not a structure where it's a faceless person that you would never ever see. Them boys are knee deep in it every day with us, and they very much lead from the front.
Yeah. That's my take. There's two takeaways. The BIM is really interesting, but I actually think the culture behind that company is another story in itself.
Yeah, I've been blessed for them to have the trust in me to do what I do.
Yeah.
And they've given me a very long leash and stuff, and trusted my instincts on a lot of things where there's been big money involved.
Yeah.
And a lot of other companies maybe would have said, we're not too sure.
When we say big money involved, what about the people involved? Not asking you your salary, but certainly for people at the high level and digital construction, is there good salaries? Is there good opportunities?
Yes, very much, yes. If you get to be top of your game, it's a very, very well paying role, yes.
There's a figure roughly for a good mid-level BIM engineer.
If you were a good BIM technician and you'd number of years under your belt, you'd be lifting minimum 40,000 a year.
Yeah, just for somebody
easy.
At
a medium grade BIM technician at the minute, you know. And if you're up or higher, it's the sky's the limit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Depends on the projects you're working on.
And that's the best way to get out to people because
it is.
The salaries in our industry, no matter what sector of the industry you're in, the salaries are high.
They are.
They are high, and it's a very rewarding industry.
It is very rewarding.
And you have a demand for those people at the moment, Gary. That's the key bit.
They were squealing for people for BIM at the minute. We just can't get them. That's
sounds to me.
We're having to bring people in from across the world.
It sounds like you want to start your own academy.
Well,
Is that not the next natural step?
It could be, yes. It could well be to start something of my own.
And that's the other thing that if you look at the industry, there are so many companies of the size of Kane who are now starting their own academies to actually bring the youth in and to train them and make them fit for industry.
That's
what's wrong with some of our
do run
universities.
apprenticeship schemes. We do.
Yeah.
We normally bring an apprenticeship in for most of the departments in the company.
Fantastic, yeah.
And certainly in our team, we do bring in a summer student and a placement student each year for for different roles and stuff. Yes, so I always encourage that. It's very much very
So what
important.
words of advice would you give to the youth of today about the construction industry?
Just be eager, be passionate about it. If you're not jumping in with 2 feet, it's not the thing for you. It's not the industry for you. It's not the industry to be sort of toe dipped into. I'll maybe think about doing that. It's dedication and it's a long haul. It's not something. Don't expect immediate success either.
I think one thing that's come out of today, Jared, and I've seen it in previous interviews, you talked about the tier 1 contractor and the fact that the supply chain, the likes of Kane, are miles ahead of them. I think that's what's happening in the industry. I think the industry has been revolutionised by the supply chain, not the main contractors, because the tier 1s are now becoming risk managers. That's all they actually are. They're not employing any people, they're employing risk managers.
We tend to do a lot of knowledge transfer partnerships with our tier 1. We're teaching them stuff.
Very much so.
them.
And I can see that day in, day out.
Yeah, it's effectively the wrong way around.
It's the wrong way around. And
Is it though?
well,
Why would it
it's
be?
probably not have the most intelligent people actually make the decisions.
You've done
I
nothing wrong.
don't
get me
I don't
wrong.
conform to that norm that it comes from above. People
yeah.
can shine no matter what level you're at. So
But from that
and
point
they're
of
the people
view,
listen to.
it goes back to the other point. There's so many companies doing such good work that are helping drive the industry from the supply chain side of it, and they're not getting the recognition.
No. And how do it's more advertisement and it's more engagement with the youth as such.
And there are numerous companies, and we talked about this with the Northern Ireland companies, why they're successful in the UK, the tier 1 Northern Ireland contractors, because they're still good traditional contractors. They're there to deliver projects, get the right people around them, and drive and manage and take responsibility.
Yeah.
I've worked with some of the larger tier 1s in the UK, and they don't want to know about construction. All they want to know is how do they I call it risk dump. They take the risk out of the contract and they throw it down the supply chain.
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong, all they want to do is be able to apportion responsibility. And and they're losing the skill to build.
Yeah.
And now the supply chain is gaining massive skill.
It's always a cost versus risk thing, isn't it? So
Isn't it? It's interesting. About
companies aren't willing to spend the money to innovate the industry around them.
Yeah.
It's always a game of poker.
I worked many, many years ago as in my teens, and you wouldn't get away with it now, working with my father as a plumber, and worked for a large contractor. And in the morning, that contractor went to the yard, they had buses leaving, there was a bus of joiners, there was a bus of bricklayers, a bus of plumbers. They employed hundreds and hundreds of men. And they developed those people, they had the apprentices the whole way through it. They took control of the entire process. Our industry doesn't do that anymore.
You used to have a job for life, and you think about it. When you were a plumber, that was you your whole life, and you worked for either yourself or one company, and that was the way it was. It doesn't like that now.
Is it changing for the good? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Just different cultures, a different approach now, isn't it?
Think so,
We're now very siloed, aren't we?
We are.
And the problem is one trade doesn't really care about the next trade. You'll find that from the M&E side.
Well, when we first started at Kane's, we were just mechanical. So for the first few years in Kane's, I had to deal with an outside electrical company and had those fights. We were the lead coordinator, and then I was basically coordinating the electrical guys' stuff, and they were just throwing 2 fingers up at me and putting it in wherever they wanted.
Yeah.
And then that was an argument down the line as to why we're doing this whole BIM thing, and that was very early doors in BIM. Like, they didn't care, and then I think that drove for the company to think, right, well, we'll just do it ourselves then. There's no point
You
fighting.
very seldom see a separate mechanical and separate electrical contractor now, because it has become very much part and parcel. It's now combined.
It's hand in glove when you think about it. MEP
That's right,
is always
right.
a package.
Makes
It
sense.
has to be, because your electrical and your mechanical are completely intertwined at every
There's
stage.
too much integration.
Yeah. Too much dependency on each other.
Gary, how do you find the large contractors here? So if you're dealing with the big English firms, and you're also dealing with the large contractors from here, from Northern Ireland, how do they compete? How do they compare against the Balfour Beatties and the other big guys as such?
Hard to know.
They're right up there, yeah.
I've never really compared them, to be honest with you. Like, we're doing work for some of the homegrown companies here, and for us, I always prefer dealing with people from home. It's just an Irish thing, isn't it? You love to deal with people from home, so you sort of understand each other a wee bit better as well. Sometimes you're talking English ones and they sort of don't get you a wee bit, and they don't get where you're coming from, and
we can always
they
go
don't
with-
understand the satire, the humour that we
No,
would have.
exactly. We can
And you
always
say
go with
something
Republic
and they
of
look
Wheat
at you
and
funny,
talk about
whereas if you're doing something at home, it's alright, because they kind of know where you're from.
That's it.
But no, like they're holding their weight, aren't they? They're doing well. I know Gilbert Ice are doing really, really good. We're doing a big project with them at the minute, and we're learning as we go, but Gilbert Ice are learning from us
That's
as
more,
well.
but that's quite a.
It's quite a big job. It's for client Epic, who do medical records, all that sort of stuff for the NHS. So they've recently got the go-ahead to build a huge campus basically outside Bristol and Long Island. Has about 12 buildings, I think, office buildings, car parks, utility buildings. So we've been given the green light for that job. So we're actually doing all the buildings, and we're also doing the infrastructure design, which is pretty unique at the minute, in that we're designing all of the underground services around the whole site in Revit as well, and being able to coordinate that to the same level of high detail out in the roads as we are internal to the buildings, which is pretty new and pretty cool as well. We're working with Fox's Contracts, our homegrown company here as well. They're the civil contractors on site, so we're sort of working along with their guys to develop this infrastructure design that ultimately, when it's modelled completely in 3D, we'll be able to give all of that geometry over to the machines on site, and they'll use the machine control, basically GNSS
They'll know exactly
machine
where to
control.
dig, how deep
So
to
they'll
dig.
be able to dig that profile
Follow
that
the
we've given them
contours, etc.,
for the
yeah.
entire 2-mile radius of the road,
Fantastic.
and then we'll be able to go in and install everything. So
And
we're
you'll prefab quite a bit of that as well.
all of the
Regarding
mechanical
site-wide
chambers,
services,
yep,
yeah.
there's these huge mechanical chambers that are the junction points for all the building connections, so they're all being developed in Revit and in situ and fabricated at home here, and then they'll all be delivered and set into the site, and then we'll do all the plastic pipework, and we're actually doing 4D simulation at the moment on the actual process of installing the pipework, because there's multi-layers of pipes. It's quite a
Sounds
thing.
like it.
So it's really good, because that is actually generating a lot of conversations in the company as to how we're actually going to put this together and stuff. So there's a cost, big cost associated with 4D, but again, it's generating conversations that we maybe wouldn't have had or maybe wouldn't have thought about until we actually landed on site. So
We
it's
gotta
actually
push the
proving its
boundaries,
worth.
don't
We
we?
really
Yeah.
are. We're trying to,
Yeah.
and then we're using all of our new XR platform. We're showing that to Bureau Happold, they're the main M&E guys on it, and I'm only after having a session with Bureau Happold showing them the new technology, and they're actually going to now start implementing it too. So it's great. You know, it's almost like a spider's web as we're getting involved in more projects and meeting
Yeah.
more people, and I'm learning more things and
Just the knowledge
getting more
base
opportunities.
increases,
So it's
yeah.
fantastic.
So, all this discussion we had today, what is the actual benefits, you know, to the main contractor, to the industry itself? When we look at all of this technology, where's the benefits? Are projects finishing quicker? Are they finishing, you know, cost-wise? Is there better control on
think
cost? Are we saving costs?
It touches every part of the construction process. It really does. It speeds up everybody. It gives everybody certainty. We always talk about this golden thread.
Yeah.
You know, the promise of it is to eradicate silos and eradicate people working in their own wee islands. The idea is to have a centrally federated model where everybody can see what they're meant to be doing, and we're going to all discuss it in a central forum as to what we're meant to be doing. And then the hope is that when that little digital model on the table looks green and good when we start putting it together on site, it is literally just like a Meccano set.
Yeah.
And we don't have
All the
and
problems have been
it
solved.
comes into everything, even logistics and site planning. You know, oh, we've got a big air handling unit coming in today, and you've put 7 bales of the pipe over there. For goodness sake, you have to stop and move that. So even my mum used to always say to me, if you mind the pennies, the pounds look after themselves. So when you look at these processes in that level of intricate detail, what you find is that when you get it all lining up, the whole picture just clicks together.
So
like
it's
a
not
big-
just the construction, it's the whole project planning and
everything.
logistics the whole way through it.
That's what, you know, people think of BIM as just being the BIM team and just knocking drawings out. It's so much more than that. It's the QSs looking at the model and understanding it. It's the procurement guys understanding what's to go in and when. It's the operations team seeing the look ahead and all that
Gary,
kind of stuff.
quality must be massively enhanced because so much of it is done off-site and on-site is all very much pre-planned.
Yes.
All the problems have been
Oh,
solved.
I mean, in a factory setting,
You've
we can
streamlined
we
everything.
can achieve a much higher quality of
Yeah.
output from our stuff.
Yeah.
And it's nicer for the guys
and
and girls
surely
as well.
there has been massive savings for environmental, for
Sure.
carbon footprint,
Yes, very much
for
so.
the long-term maintenance of a building.
Because
the
we're
life
working the
cycles of a
lean
building.
principles, you know what I mean? We do
Yeah.
and just-in-time engineering, so we schedule all of our stuff to arrive just when it's needed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not lying about on sites because it gets wrecked, and it's, you know, we're able to streamline all of our deliveries so that we
Mm-hmm.
actually model the curtain loader lorries to see all what we can fit into the curtain loader. We go that far in BIM to actually model the order that we're going to put things in and what orientation. So like
So
if
you're-
we're doing
so you're-
skids and all, we actually
yeah.
have the skids in rolled on their side and stuff like that.
So you're minimising the amount of deliveries having to go to site. So again, it's
Exactly,
back to
yes.
carbon footprint.
Cost and carbon footprint, obviously, the biggest drivers.
and like
It's
from-
all local supply chain as well.
I think so, yes. I don't get involved in too much logistics, but I would assume that it's all local transport companies that are coming and taking the stuff and
Yeah.
liaising on the other side, yes.
But if you look at it, all the things we talk about that the industry is fighting against, you know, the youth of today want to be sustainable.
Yeah.
They want to be in the technology side. You know, they want to make a difference to the lives of others.
Yeah.
We're doing all that.
Some of us are, yeah.
We're just not telling people about
Just
it.
not telling people, yeah.
That's the common theme, isn't it?
Isn't
That's
it?
it.
Very much so is the common theme. And the more we peel the layers off here and the deeper we go.
Well, that's it. I mean,
we
I
can
started
s-
life as a CAD technician when I first graduated. Now I'm a technology expert.
But it's actually showing the depth of industry.
Shows the difference what you can do and where you can end up.
Fantastic.
And it's
we're,
fantastic.
We are at the leading edge.
It's exciting. It really is.
We're at the exciting leading edge, and we're breaking the glass ceilings. We're pushing through, and
I've been all around the world.
we're not
and-
telling
and
enough people.
Here, certainly in Ireland and Northern Ireland particularly, we are seen worldwide as leaders in this field. We are. And I've
We're
spoken to
innovators,
people all
yeah.
over the world, in America and Asia and Australia. The whole world is almost watching here to see what we're doing, and it's phenomenal.
Say that again, Gary. That's a very important point.
The entire world is watching us as
There
to
you
what
go.
we are doing here
There
in
you go.
Northern
There's a
Ireland.
very transient point.
And it's,
Yeah.
it goes back to your point on Claridge's. Why was it all in Northern Irish?
Yeah.
It was the skill involved. It was the teams.
But we're hearing this time
Yeah.
and time again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Northern Ireland construction industry
big time.
is very much driving.
Yeah.
I've felt
innovating,
that for a long, long
and
time, to be
setting
honest with you,
standards.
just from my own experiences. But my last 4 or 5 years travelling all over the world, going to America and being on stage in
Let's
Autodesk University,
let's
for
not
example.
forget, since the concept of construction started, the Irish have
Well, that's
exported the greatest asset, or people.
they've said that
We've
haven't
built
and
the
we've
world.
we've built the world, and that
built the world.
continues to this day. I don't
No
see
matter
that
what
ever
building you
changing.
go to, iconic building around the world, I can guarantee it was majority Irishman built
Yep,
it.
you know,
It's probably the usual Irish sentiment: have passport, will travel.
I think so.
That's the way our construction industry goes. I think it's
Well,
one of our,
it
I think
leads
it's
back
one of
to-
our greatest exports.
You know, you're asking me about low times whenever I was getting kicked, and there was times in my life I was like, I'm going to give all this up. Why am I even bothering with this engineering? And it was always on the promise that those days would come and working on that. And my mum used to say, God love her, she's not here no more. She used to say, if it's meant for you, it'll not pass you.
That's it. That's it.
And with the right attitude and the right mindset and the right peacocking, as I call it, you put yourself out there and
Yeah,
show what you can
yeah.
do. Build it and they'll come. That's what I always say, like Wayne's World. You know what I mean?
Very
Quick
good
question. You've got 5 kids, haven't you?
Yeah, I do.
You're a busy guy, travelling out to Banbridge 4 days a week. How do you get time to coach Carrie Duff Colt's soccer team?
Good question. I don't, but I try and find time. Other coaches would probably say I'm not always there, but
Well,
I
depends
do
where
my
they are in the
best.
league. Are they high up or low down?
Oh, well, it's
Tell us.
it's my youngest boy. He's 8, so it's the 2017. So it's
Right.
grassroots football coach, and I started that a few years ago when he was young.
Is that the South Belfast Youth League he's in?
It is, yeah. We've just joined that this year. Yeah, we've just
My
started
son's in
the
the
SBY.
Rosario.
Oh, Rosario, they
So with
skin
those
us
games
every week.
once a
They're
week.
good teams. They're a really, really good team. Rosario, brilliant.
It's all down to the coach, isn't
No,
it?
I thoroughly enjoy it. The football, and I love dealing with kids and all. As you said, I've got 5 kids of my own. My oldest daughter's actually she's just started in Titanic Quarter in Belfast, met there, studying A-levels, studying engineering. So hopefully
Very good.
she's coming behind me.
Right.
Yeah. But it's, don't get a minute any day of the week. It's,
Wow.
and any minute I do get to myself, I'm away looking at new technologies, or I'm researching something, or
Right.
just can't sit still. Aye.
Wow.
Brilliant. Gary, listen, it's been very engaging conversation. I've really enjoyed it, I have
Thank
to
you.
say, and hopefully we've shown the industry for what it actually is. It's been fantastic. Just in closing, one final question. What legacy do you want to leave behind?
Good question. I would love to try and leave a legacy for my kids that, you know, I always said that even Marty, I might not ever be a director of a company or own something big, but I'll be known all around the world for being the best. That would like to be my legacy, like someone to look to as an example in every aspect, as a BIM technician, as a leader, as a father, for example. That would like to be my legacy. If I could, people stand over me when I'm going and say, he was a good dad and he was good at what he did, that'll be enough for me.
Listen, you've certainly opened a few eyes today, Gary, so it's been good.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you, Gary. It's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so it's a great conversation. Jared, what do you think today?
I really enjoy that. He's a passionate guy. Enjoyed the whole BIM story and the whole company story.
Yeah, just great to hear about Kane Group, and another great Northern Ireland success story. So again, thank you to Gary for appearing today. Thank you to Cleaver Fulton Rankin for the use of the facilities today. So hope you enjoyed today's episode of Specify Talks. If you did, please give us a like, give us a share, get us on all the usual social media channels, Instagram, LinkedIn. Also listen to the Spotify and YouTube. And if you enjoyed what you heard today and you want to be a guest, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. And hopefully you'll tune into the next episode. Thank you.